Hi, this is Brianna with Your Dog Biz Coach and the owner of Pack Leader Help Rehabilitation and Training. You're not asking your clients enough questions, or at least you're not asking them thoroughly enough. One of the biggest issues I see when I'm working with new trainers, or even seasoned trainers that have been doing training for many, many years, the first feedback I get when a person shadows me or a trainer shadows me is that you're so thorough, you ask so many questions. Our job as trainers is to penetrate through the symptoms that our clients are experiencing and getting to the root of the issue. This is particularly if you do any type of training that's centered around behavior modification, reactivity, aggression. Our job as trainers is not just obviously educating the owner, it's being able to ask the right questions. Because without the right questions, you're not going to be getting the answers that you really need. I'm going to go over many different questions and even the follow-up questions that I ask when I first meet with clients, because really within the first meeting and maybe the first and second throughout your program, you need to be asking very, very thorough questions. For example, the first thing I ask is for them to specifically describe what their day looks like. Where does the dog sleep? When do they eat? How much do they eat? When is the exercise? How much is the exercise? Then I'll ask follow-up questions. Does your dog eat every single meal, or do they leave some out? Has it always been that way? Anytime you ask a question, you should always be asking with the follow-up, how long has that occurred for? Has it always been that way? Has it been since they were 8 weeks old, or did this start where you're usually going to see it is around sexual maturity, around 7 or 8 months? That's going to be a common denominator, particularly if this client has had this dog for their entire life. Let's say, I'm asking them, what does their exercise look like, or when are they eating? I'll always say, has it always been that way? Do they always not finish their food? Can you give me a percentage? How many days a week are they not doing this? How many days a week are you exercising them? I am honestly, for about 45 minutes to an hour, that first hour and a half I'm with a new client for in-home training, I am asking them extremely thorough questions. If I have, let's say I have 2 dogs fighting, tell me where exactly it happened. Tell me the time of day. Time of day has a great impact on our dog's behavior, particularly if an instance or something negative occurred during a particular time of day. You might find that is the time of day that behavior comes up the most. The 2 dogs who might be fighting are okay for the beginning part of the day, and then around that 6 p.m. mark is when there is some issues. The next piece of that is knowing how and when to ask those follow-up questions. If I'm okay, the exercise, do you and your partner and your child, do you guys do everything the same? And then I'm gonna ask them, show me exactly what you do. Are there times when the dog isn't getting as much exercise, or if the husband does it one way and the wife does it another way? I always ask why. Ask your clients why they're doing things or why they're not doing things. Because without the why, let's say they're we take our dog to daycare 3 times a week and we usually walk them on the weekends. If you're you should be walking your dog more, that's not good enough. Ask them why. Are they busy? Are they overwhelmed? Are they dealing with an ill parent? Are their kids stressing them out? If you're not asking why after every single question you're asking, it's not a judgment call. You're not asking them why to judge them. And I always try and reiterate that to my clients. You're asking them why so you can understand their behavior. So that way you can make reasonable expectations, techniques, or concepts for them to employ with their own dog. Say, for example, someone's yeah, recently we've just haven't been able to walk him as much. Why? Well, I've been really busy at work. Okay, so let's talk about that. If I share with you that the reason that your dog is behaving in this way is because there's a massive lack of fulfillment, can we create some resources that make that more palatable to you? I've had clients recently who are having kids. They just do not have the time or the emotional capacity to be able to work with their dog. It's my job as the professional to find those resources. At least that's how I feel, because I'm going to go the extra mile in this case where it's not a lazy owner. It's not someone who's not wanting to put in the work. They just do not have the capacity at this moment in time. Okay, let's say, for example, I recommend that you guys get in a walker twice a week. Does that seem reasonable to you? Talk to me about why there might be hesitation there. And then they get to share, it's kind of nice to have the dog out of the house. Or, okay, so let's talk about, why do you feel like you need the dog out of the house? Well, they kind of bug me. They're demand barking. They bring up their toys. Okay, so you see how it really goes down this rabbit hole of getting deep into what the client's concerns are. That way, of course, we are prioritizing the mental health and the emotional health and the physical health of the dog, but if we don't at least initially prioritize maybe what the owner needs in order to get under threshold, we won't be able to help the dog either way. These questions need to be really thorough: what they're eating, how they're eating, where they're eating, how long the behavior has going on, maybe what the interpretation is from the client. Talk to me about your perspective. Why do you think your dog is doing that? Or let's say we're getting the dog ready to go outside and the dog's super excited. They're like playing a game with like running away from the leash or putting it on, or maybe they're jumping up and down. I always ask my clients in those moments, how do you think your dog's feeling? And then they'll say, oh, I think they're really excited. And then the reality is the dog is incredibly anxious, super nervous, just awful, not feeling excited. Maybe they're aroused at that moment, but there's not like this happiness connotation that excitement often has when humans hear it. And like, okay, if I ask them their perspective in that particular moment, it allows me to adjust in that moment and say, okay, let me explain to you why they might not be feeling joy and happiness right now. We have super dilated eyes, we have a big stress pant, we have tension in the body, have the ears perked forward but fixating. So we have all these things that we can describe to them, tangible things that they can see and feel and observe in the moment, and not waiting until the very end or not using language that's kind of ambiguous. Ambiguous language looks like pushy, demanding, reactive, excited, calm. Owners do not know what that means specifically. Describe to them the physiological things that are occurring for the dog. The dog is wiggling their butt. Their eyes are super dilated. They're moving around. They're pacing. The tail is completely erect. The ears are perked forward. The nose isn't going. Like, these are things that we have to describe and then ask. I'll say, can you notice them doing this? And then I give them a moment to observe their dog. Then we go on from there. I have a checklist that's free to anyone who is interested. You can click the link in the YouTube description below. You just type in your email, you get the free dog trainer's checklist, and that's usually for consultations. I try and make sure that I'm asking very thorough questions because that's how I'm able to get to the root of the problem faster. Not taking me, like, it doesn't take me 3-4 sessions. That doesn't mean we resolve it, but I have a full comprehensive understanding of the problem. Let me think of some other questions I ask. Why do they sleep in bed with you? What value are you getting from that? How would it make you feel if I suggested this? Is there a way that we could feel more comfortable with the idea of doing X, Y, Z with the dog? I'm trying to prioritize my questions to make sure that my clients feel supported, because when my clients trust me and feel supported, they are willing to climb Mount Everest for me. They trust that if I give them some advice or if I give them a technique to try, that I have their well-being and their dog's well-being in the back of my mind always. If you have questions about this, if you feel like you want to have better lessons with your clients, I have a ton of free resources on my website, my Instagram, my podcast, or if you feel like you need tailored feedback, you and I could work together one-on-one on your business. Thanks so much. Hit the subscribe button if you got any good information. I'll talk to you guys soon.